Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Old Man Energy Accelerator podcast. This is the last of the accelerator segments for this quarter, and we have a treat for you guys today. Second go round, so this is going to be even better than it was the first, where the audio was messed up. We are being joined today by Andrew Drewbie Wilson of Call the Damn Leads. On here, we all have unique names, apparently, for our companies. So welcome, Andrew. Can you give yourself a better introduction than that?
Oh, man. Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. I am Drewbie Wilson, better known as the Meme Lord. For those of you not watching on the video, I have Meme Lord tattooed across my knuckles. I grew up in the street selling anything and everything I could get my hands on. As I got older, realized I didn't want to end up dead or in prison, met a pretty lady, had a boy, all the things that make us decide we want to be better men, human fathers, all the things. And so, I'm just here to have a good time, man.
Man, we appreciate you, and that is a hell of an introduction. We can drill deep down on that, but before we get into it, make sure you guys check the comments down there. We want you to go follow him. He is insanely entertaining. He has a group on Facebook, and he and I have been friends for several years now. We met online. I don't even know for the fact that we've ever met at an event in person. If we did, I don't remember. But he has a very unique sales style, and I want to hear a little bit about your background. I know the listeners do too, but let's talk about sales for a minute. And what is it that you love about sales? And tell me what Meme Lord means in relation to that, because I love this part of your story.
Appreciate that. Yeah, so for me, I had mentioned earlier, I grew up in the streets selling anything and everything, and so it was always about essentially boiling it down to what do they need and can I get my hands on it? And if so, how much can I make in the middle? And it really, over time, as I got into more different industries and sold tobacco, and then I sold furniture and insurance, and what I really learned along the way is that sales just comes down to empathy and confidence. And one of my mentors before me kind of like helped boil it down to those two things, but it's, hey man, can I ask the right questions to understand what you're going through in your current situation, and then potentially figure out what you're trying to achieve? And if so, can I be confident in my ability to help you get that thing, either getting out of the pain that you're currently in or getting into the pleasure that you're seeking? Because that's typically why people make any decision or take any action in their life, is they want to get out of pain or they want to get into pleasure. There's really no middle area. Anybody that's in the middle, that bump on a log, I mean, we all know those people, but they're not doing anything because they're not in enough pain or they're not desiring that pleasure enough to actually take action to go get it. And so for me, sales is very much just about building relationships with people, understanding who they are, what they've got going on, and why they're trying to do the thing that they're trying to do. Because from there, it's just helping them create a path that makes sense in their own mind on how to achieve that thing. And the bigger the problem that you solve, the more people will pay you to help them solve it. And as I got into the deeper psychology side of sales, that's where the Meme Lord came from, because I was, again, I grew up in the streets. I've been tattooed my whole life since like 15, 16 years old. So like always been on a little bit of the edge in that sense of things. So when it came to sales, at one point I was going through a slump, had been like a week since I closed any deals, and I was feeling a little spicy. So I fired off a bunch of memes to people. And I was like, you know what? What's the worst that could happen? They're not responding anyways. And all of a sudden it was like bing, bing, bing. I was starting to get these sales were coming through, and people were responding and being like, ha, 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 that's so funny. I've been meaning to reach out to you. I had whatever excuse. And I thought to myself, this is, first of all, it's got to be a fluke. Thank you, God, for dropping some gems in my lap, helping me get some deals in a slump. But when I hit up a friend of mine and sent him the same meme, which is basically, remember the movie Ace Ventura with Jim Carrey? And he's like,
Yep.
He's in the dolphin tank and he's got his head in there and he's looking into the camera all kind of crazy. It was that like that picture, but it said "you there?" question mark across the bottom. And so I just fired that off and I sent it to him. And I was like, dude, this is going to sound crazy, but try this out. Send it to a bunch of people that have ghosted you and see if they respond. And 2 to 3 days later, he hits me back and he's like, hey, man, you're never going to believe this. I just got a $1.8 million home listing using the meme that you sent me to follow up with a guy that I haven't heard from in months. And for those of you who aren't in real estate, the commission on a $1.8 million listing is pretty sweet. So I went into the lab and I created a whole course around memes and how to use them in sales and follow up, because from a psychology standpoint, which we can get into a little bit deeper, they help create connection. And the more connection you can create with your potential customers, the more trust that they're going to have, and the more trusting in you they are, the more likely they are to give you their money to help them solve their problem. Does that kind of wrap it all up and answer your questions?
It does. It does. And for those of you that have not previously followed him, he's got example after example after example on his Facebook page and in his group, and also a lot of the guys in there do too. Um, I was I was hesitant. I would use memes personally. I've got a very large family, and I was always the guy that's sending out silly stuff for birthdays and things like that. But never dawned on me to try and use them professionally, and I've used them professionally with some because it just felt unprofessional. But I've used them with a lot of success since you and I met and started working together. And we've never really worked together officially, just followed each other on Facebook and interacted, been friends that way. But those gifts are power. Those memes are, do people respond because you make them laugh, or it's a I guess it would be a pattern interrupt. So you want to drill down the psychology on that a little bit. I'm curious to know that behind. I have some opinions, but I've never looked it up. So
Yeah, no, that's you're right on target. And so here's where it kind of goes a little bit deeper than what we know in 2025 as like an internet meme. So if you go back to the original founding of the word meme, it comes from mimetic transfer, and it's in a book by a biologist named Dr. Richard Dawkins. And essentially, in the book, he's going over Darwin's study of evolution, and he's talking about how certain societies of these animals were learning different ways of living from other societies. And the example was basically like, hey, if you have a group of monkeys on this side of the island and then a group of monkeys on the other side of the island, but only one of those groups of monkeys knows how to open the coconut with a rock. If at some point a monkey from the opposite side happens to see that monkey open the coconut with a rock and then go back and tell people about it, that's mimetic transfer. It's the transfer of information between cultures or societies. And when you think about how you fast forward to 2025, what we see now as a meme is basically an image or a short video from a scene that we recognize, whether it's a television show or a movie or something from the media. There's a context to the visual. And then we overlay a new meaning by adding different words to the picture. And so what happens is, as you mentioned, it's a pattern interrupt, because the human mind, when we see things that we recognize, we look at them. That's the reticular activating system. It's like when you buy a certain kind of car, you just happen to see that car more often because you recognize it. It's the pattern. But when you recognize it and it's slightly different, you pause a little bit longer, because now it's like, okay, well, I recognize this, but there's something different to it. And my brain wants me to understand what that is. Like if you've seen a supercar, if you've ever seen a Lamborghini, they're Lamborghinis, but every Lamborghini is just a little bit different because they all like to do their own little upgrades or like different wheels or spoilers or whatever. The same thing happens. We recognize it, so we stop. We start to analyze it and go, okay, well, what's different about this thing? And then we start making decisions on how we feel about the new context of that picture. It's kind of like, remember when Will Smith slapped Chris Rock on the stage? Remember how many memes there were? every single one of them was a different context, but we all knew the deeper emotional connection to that was like, yo, you just got slapped, dog. And that is where, from a sales and marketing perspective, memes are super powerful. Because if a picture is worth 1,000 words, what can you say with a meme that someone would completely skipped past if you just hit them with a wall of text?
And we've all done it. You get that block of text, you scan for keywords, or just don't read it at all. Just read the first and the last sentence and be done with it.
And that to me is, with so much automation in the world, with AI and templated messaging, being able to differentiate yourself, to create that pattern interrupt, to feel more authentic and human, that's what I believe has allowed me to be a fantastic sales professional. And many of my clients would agree, because you had mentioned, like, I've got testimony after testimony after testimony from people that have implemented this and had massive success. But people do business with people, and they do business with people they know, like, and trust. And if you can send me a meme that makes me chuckle, that trust just went 2 to 3 points higher. And it's hard to take that away unless you do something really dumb. And if you're trying to build rapport and build trust, being authentic and being able to connect with someone on a deeper emotional level, especially with a meme, it says something.
No, that's great, and I love it. It's been personal experience and seen that. Now, I am curious to play devil's advocate here for a minute. Have you ever had anybody come back to you and say, "Well, this is very unprofessional," or "I don't appreciate this"?
Countless times, and I always say, "Thank you, I appreciate it." The best thing about being an entrepreneur and small business owner is I don't have to do business with everyone who has a credit card and a pulse. So if you don't like memes, you're not going to like me. Have a great day. And then I just move on.
You are not qualified to be my customer.
And you know what, though, Flint? Like, that's something I think a lot of people forget, is they really feel like they have to try to sell everyone. And man, the harder I've had to sell someone, it's usually the worse the client ends up being. Because I've already exhausted myself to get them in the door, and then they're just wanting to nitpick or complain, or, it's never as good as, hey, here's what we do, here's how we help people, here's the cost, and them going, all right, well, what do we do next? That's the kind of client I want to work with. And so if someone gets mad about a meme, then they're definitely not going to like the way I do business later.
It's a filter. Two things in relation to that. One, Des calls that chasing the dollar. And she reminds me of that constantly. She goes, just because you're engaging with them does not mean you have to close them. And
my wife gets me with that too.
Yeah, and when I'm teaching and when I'm mentoring somebody, I also tell them, I say, look, you're looking for a response. It doesn't have to be yes. It doesn't have to be no. You just want engagement. Then you don't wonder, because we all have those well, I try not to anymore, but have those stacks of cards or contacts or leads that are uncontacted that might be something and might not be something. This gives you an easy way to reach out to even old or dead leads that we would consider, and then in a lighthearted manner. And nobody, if they're going to get mad about a meme, you're right. You're not going to do business with me anyway. So what does it matter?
And what's funny, you mentioned the business cards, Flynn. I think back of all the people who I've met over the years that have given me business cards, and I honestly can't say that I've called, out of the hundreds I've received, maybe half a dozen of those people.
Really?
Because typically when someone approaches me with a business card, they're coming to me saying, hey, I do this thing. You should let me sell you it. Here's my card. Call me so I can sell you shit. And I'm usually just like, that's great. There was zero value for me in that conversation. You just wanted to tell me who you are, how great you are, and how you can help me make, do X, Y, Z. But like, you didn't bother to ask anything about me. You didn't ask to learn anything like what I'm looking for, the pain that I'm in, or the pleasure that I'm seeking. So when people think about, oh, business cards end up in the trash, they're ending up in the trash because of how you started the relationship. That's why business cards end up in the trash. If someone asks you for a business card, that means that they're really trying to understand how you can help them. But you just giving someone a card and saying, call me, that's spammy. That's like somebody sliding in your DMs and telling you how much money they can help you make with Forex and all these crazy things. Like, no, I'm good, dog. I'm out. And so that's just me. Again, I'm a little different, but
I use
truth is truth.
I'm gonna have to get you a copy of my latest book is Power Networking Beyond the Handshake, because I'm a very aggressive networker in person, and I
Okay.
gather the cards with intent and specificity. But one of the things I talk about is networking events turning into just a virtual machine gun of business cards. And I use your exact thing. There are so many amateur networkers out there. Back 20, 30 years ago, when I was deep in hardcore sales, and I cut my teeth on first retail sales and then office equipment sales. So, which is just as aggressive as car sales sometimes. Um, I didn't set out to be a powerful networker. I was just a lazy cold caller. And but I agree with you. I mean, most of the time you won't call those cards back unless you have a purpose and a reason. And if you don't lead with value, then it's spammy. But if you lead with value and you left a good enough impression in any interaction with somebody, they'll answer the phone when you call them. They'll answer that message when you send it to them. But it's all about presenting value or the perception of value.
And I want to go into this, Flint, because I actually have an event this weekend, and I, by nature, tend to be more introverted. I am not the aggressive networker. I'm having to learn to be more extroverted in that because I believe like power versus force. I can go and knock on 1,000 doors today and maybe get 3 new clients just by law of large numbers. But if I can go and plant 1,000 trees by having good conversations and genuinely trying to like provide some sort of new like nurturing or value to an individual, no, I'm not going to necessarily get all of my deals today. But what could that turn into over the next 5 years, 10 years? So with me, when I do a networking event, I am learning to really treat it as if it's more a discovery time, so that when I go and I meet with people, I'm like, well, tell me about your business. How'd you get into that? Like, that's super interesting. What are some of the things that you do in that business? Like, what are some crazy stories? I have a podcast. I'd love to have you come on my podcast and tell a story about what you do. Now I'm giving them an opportunity to feel like I care about them more than I care about me getting something from them. And that is where, having the book is a great tool, because people aren't going to throw away a book realistically. They might, but you kind of got to be a douche to take a book off of a table and then throw it in the garbage like 5 minutes later. Usually, and that was the other thing, my partner that I'm going to this event with, he was like, well, don't bring books unless you want people to throw them away. And I'm like, no, I charge people. I'm like, yeah, the books are for sale. They're $10. And that gives me the reason to believe that they are actually interested in what knowledge can be attained from it. And that's where I try to go out and build the relationship first, so that when they come by and they see me later, they're like, well, how do I get one of those? Like, what's that about? Now they're actually showing interest versus, as we mentioned, someone just coming up and saying, hey, I do sales training. Let me teach you how to sell more stuff. Here's my card. Call me sometime.
Yeah. And that's it. I love the book as a lead. And I wrote my first book in 2012, and it then proceeded immediately not to do anything about it or with it for 10 years. Well, I just wanted to sit back and watch other people do it better than me, even though I did it first. I guess that was it. I don't know. But since then, I've published several other books, and I love the interaction and the credibility that gives you. But when it comes to this specifically, I like planting all of those seeds, and I teach that the time to pitch is not in the middle of a networking event. That is the time to make a micro relationship as quickly as possible and set the expectation for a follow-up later. Mm. And when you do that, you can work a room. And I never leave a networking event without making some contacts of value, but always leaving more value there with the people, so that they remember who I am. And you never know. I mean, I've got examples of people that are just completely outside of my industry and not a good prospect at all, but I might meet somebody at a networking event next week that could use their services, plug those two people into each other, and they both remember who I am.
Well, and that's why I like leaving such a good lasting impression. I had a guy call me last month. He said he's been following me online for 3 years. We met at an event 3 years ago, one time in passing, and I think I gave him one of my books or mentioned that I had a book coming out, and then he started following me online. I didn't know, never heard from the guy. He pops up, he's 3 years later. He's like, hey, man, I've been following you. I've got X, Y, and Z going on. I'm looking for some consulting. Can you help me break this down? This is what I'm looking for. Is that something that you offer, or can you point me in the direction of someone who does? And it's like, well, man, once again, it's like, hey, God shows up at the perfect time because there's always a right time and place. But it's like, yeah, absolutely. It turns out this is exactly what I help people with, man. Let's talk about it. Let's set that expectation. And it all came from building that initial relationship and just being a value first individual in every situation, whether I'm at an event, whether I'm posting online, when I'm going into a community somewhere. I'm always just looking for a way to have that giver's gain mentality, because you never know when one of those seeds that you planted is going to come back and pay off.
It's so important. It's so important. The consistency that shows as well. And now more than ever with social media, and no matter which one you participate in, from TikTok to Facebook, Instagram, they're all different. And LinkedIn, we got to include LinkedIn in there too for the business guys, but they're all different. But if you present a consistent image across them that shows your integrity, and people look for that now. I mean, we all do the same thing. First thing you do when you're going to talk to somebody is you go look them up. Half the time we don't even Google them anymore. We just go straight to Facebook or wherever we want to interact with them. But people don't realize consistency is not boring. It's not the same thing every time. Like, you go to my LinkedIn, it's all business, because LinkedIn's primarily business. Go to my Instagram, it's mostly fitness and cuts from the podcast. Facebook, you're going to see my grandkids. You're going to see us traveling. You're going to see different things like that. But it's the same message across the board. They don't see one thing here and another thing here. So in that, how important and impactful is it from a sales perspective these days? Because that's what we're talking about today, apparently, is all sales. How important and impactful is it in a world of complete transparency to be an aggressive salesman or a passive salesman? What do you think?
I think you can be successful either way. I think there's an ask for every seat and there's a deal for every closer. And I think the difference is really getting clarity on which of those you are and leaning more into it. Because no one really wants to work with someone who's kind of in the middle. It's like you're either really passionate about this and you're so fired up that it gets me fired up, or I already know that this is what I want, and your ability to just take my order and get what I need in a efficient fashion. That's, I mean, those are people that exist. Like, hey, some great closers are not like very extroverted. They're not hammering, but man, you get them on the phone and they're great. They service people, they take care of business, and all of a sudden you're like, that dude closed how much? All right,
Seriously?
then, all right, cool. And that's why I love sales, because it doesn't matter where you come from or what background or what personality type. If you're consistent, they will believe that you are someone that they can trust to help them solve their problem. And what I love about your reference to the social media aspect is, think about television. How many shows are on TV every day that maybe have a dozen people watching them at any given time? But they're still on. They still show up and they still play the episodes. They still put them on repeat. You can still find people that are looking for episodes of Friends and Nick at Night. And, some of us kids are going back and watching Rugrats or Rocket Power or whatever, like the things from our childhood. We're seeking them out. And so if you can just provide it and have it available and make it easy for someone to find, there's an audience for people that will come and find it and get it from you. Same as if there's, it's a newer product or service, or people don't already know who you are. Well, then you're going to have to put in the effort to get out there and get known. You're going to have to put out the content. You're going to have to be consistently showing up, because how many times have you driven by the billboard that's 3 miles from your house and you still have no idea what's on it? If I were to ask you right now, hey, what's on that billboard 2 miles up the road, you can't tell me because you're oblivious to it. But if you don't know, you don't know. And that's why you have to continue to put yourself out there and be consistent, because people don't know who you are. There's a billion people on the planet, and you only need a small fraction of them. But you're mad because you're not getting a majillion views. I promise you, if you had 300 people showed up with their credit card out tomorrow, you couldn't handle them anyways. Don't stress. Start with 3 and then work your way up from there, man.
That's another point that we teach very similarly. It's like, okay, don't believe all the marketing hype. If you had 300 customers a month for the next 90 days, because all the marketers are like, I'm going to bring you 1,000 new customers. It's like, you don't have the infrastructure for that right now.
You would be broke and broken in a heartbeat.
Yeah, try for 30. That'll be hard enough.
Try for 3. Hey, man, bring me 3 clients. Let me see that. And then let's get 6 and then 9 and then 18. Like,
let's scale it. People don't realize it doesn't necessarily get harder as you grow faster. It just gets different hard.
That's such a great way to put it. Like, it's not harder. It's just a different kind of hard.
Yeah.
That's it.
I like what Hormozy says. It takes the exact same amount of effort to make $1 million as it does 100,000. So you might as well try for the bigger number. But you can't scale immediately to the bigger number. That would just destroy most people. And I want to interject something here real quick to all of you salespeople out there, or all of you young folks that are thinking about going there. Well, hell, for that matter, anybody thinking about going into sales. Do not ever apologize for sounding salesy. It immediately weakens your position, and I hear it at every event during the introductions. I don't mean to sound salesy, but this is what we do. Well, if the first thing you're going to do is tell me you're not going to do something, I know that's exactly what you're going to do.
Oh, Flint, like when I go to speak at events, nothing makes me happier than when someone goes up before me and they're like, no, I don't have anything to sell you. Because as soon as I get on stage, I'm like, those folks might not have anything to sell you, but I sure as hell do. I'm from Call the Damn Leads. My name's Drewbie Wilson. Let's get down to business. Like, yo, you come find me. I'll sell you whatever you need. And if I don't have it, one of my friends probably does. So let me make a referral introduction, because at the end of the day, I can't solve every problem, but dadgummit, I'm going to do my best to know where to go to look for the solution.
So I changed the title of my Facebook page to something one of my guys told me a long time ago. He said, you're the guy to call when you don't know who else to call. So that's what it says right there. It's like, I'm going to find a way to fix your problem, because if I get value for you, then I'm going to make some money somewhere along the way.
Amen, brother.
So how do you go about making a meme, or do you just go find one that fits? How does that work?
Well, for those of you that really want to know, go to closermemes.com and grab my course. It's $27. I promise you it's the best $27 you'll ever invest in your sales training. And if not, I'll give you your money back. But essentially it starts with, there are already a lot of memes out there that you can just go and repurpose. If you join my public Facebook group, the Call the Damn Leads public group, I put memes in there every day. You're more than welcome to swipe them and take them and use them yourself. But when it comes to actually making the meme, there's a couple layers to it. You have to know who you're speaking to and why. So who's your client avatar? What's the problem that they're facing? What's the thing that they're trying to get through? What's the conversation that they're having in their own head? And really, what are the things that interest them? Because if I'm trying to talk to a guy that's super into like God, guns, and Trump, I can't come in with some sort of like super, frilly type stuff. No, that's not going to get their attention. I need to come in with something like big guns ablazing, freaking bald eagle screeching type stuff. That's what's going to get their attention. So you have to start with understanding who you are trying to get the attention of, so that you can grab the right imagery to get their attention. Because if I know I'm trying to work with someone and I know they're going to be interested in this specific movie or this recent event that's relevant to their interests, well, then that's the foundation of the conversation. From there, I now have to think about what is the emotion that I'm trying to elicit or trigger when they see this meme. Because if I want them to feel happy, I have to make sure that the image is happy. Or if the image isn't happy, that whatever I overlay on top of it makes that emotion stand out that they're going to see. Because again, the idea is getting attention with what they recognize and then using the overlaid context to change the way they feel about it. You tracking with me? I know I'm getting a little scientific here, Flint, but this is like, there is definitely a science to this. So now that you know who it's for and what we're going to elicit from an emotional standpoint, the next step is really understanding where they are in their customer journey so that you can time the meme correctly. Because it's real easy to send a meme at the wrong time and totally blow a deal up. Like I said, there's been people that have been like, this was so unprofessional. And it was like, probably timed that one a little bit wrong. Or maybe could have used slightly different meme. Maybe they didn't laugh about it the same way that I laughed about it. That's my bad. You know, like,
Oops.
I've definitely oopsed it a couple times on the memes. But more often than not, it's just the thing that allows me to say the thing I want to say without having to directly say it. And sometimes that is the hardest part of a sales conversation or handling objections, is wanting to say things in a way that doesn't offend the other individual and also helps them recognize that their perspective might be slightly skewed, and that's what's preventing them from getting to the next place. Did I explain that well? Did I answer your question?
You explained that in a highly, highly detailed manner. But it's what I wanted, because we send these out with our gut. Like, okay, my dad will think this is funny. I'm going to send this to him. My brother will think this is funny. I'm going to send this to him, because we understand people's sense of humor. We can use that to a certain degree with our client, but we have to pay more attention when you're using these memes with a purpose and defining them. Now, I have an interesting question. I don't mean this to be like a gotcha question, so don't take it that way. But all we have, and I'm pulling on your expertise here, all we've talked about is texting, yet you come from call the damn leads. So what's the difference? Which one's more powerful? You obviously believe texting and memes are powerful, and I agree with you on that. But
yep.
Where does that leave the good old fashioned call and the follow up and phone conversation?
Yeah, I appreciate that you were willing to challenge me a little bit, because yes, I have evolved to the digital era. There is no doubt about the fact that all of us are hiding behind that little black screen, and we are able to avoid messages that we don't want. We can easily see who's trying to contact us and ignore it. And so texting, messaging, DMing, social media, it is absolutely a popular communication channel. And also, it's real easy to be able to look at that notification and ignore it. Whereas a phone call, a good old-fashioned phone call, it still lights up the whole screen for 15, 20 seconds. It buzzes, it does whatever. And so it's just a little bit more attention grabbing. And unless you're one of those people like me who lives on Do Not Disturb and the phone doesn't ring unless I want it to me, there's still something to be said about genuine communication. Because here's a great example, Flint. You and I could record this and we could create a whole transcription and we could post that transcription to a blog or Facebook, but what are the chances people are really going to read through the whole thing? There might be a couple.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, likely zero, to be 100% honest, because like we're cool, but maybe not that cool where so many people are looking for us that they're going to read the transcription. But I don't want to speak negativity. Maybe we're that cool. Let's say we're that cool.
Okay. All right.
However, people are listening because they like the inflection. There's something to be said about tonality. There's something that empathy comes through. The energy bleeds through differently in a verbal communication than a digital communication. And it's even so far as to, if you received a handwritten letter, it's going to mean something more to you than something that was printed out on a computer. Even if the person sat down and typed it all out in a Word document and printed it out and mailed it to you, it's still not as valuable as someone taking the time to handwrite a letter with a pen or a pencil, because we know what actually went into making that a reality. And so that to me is where calling the damn leads is step one. If they don't answer, then we can text them and then email them and then send them a social media message. Then we call them again, and then maybe call them again and 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 again, as many times as necessary to where we can create a communication point. And so, Flint, one of the secrets that I will share with your listener, if they're still here, hearing me gab my mouth at 36 minutes into this thing, I ask, because I don't do a lot of cold messaging. So most of my leads are someone who's already bought something from callthedamnleads.com or ordered one of my books or seen me somewhere. So like most of them already have a bit of an introduction to me. But I'll simply say, hey, I got your information. I saw that you placed an order on the store. What made you decide to check us out? And would you prefer to have a conversation here in messages or set up a phone call? Because I'm good either way. I want to know what your preferential communication method is. Because if you're a person that just wants to communicate via text and I'm trying to push you to get on a phone call, you're going to get annoyed and you're going to block my number. Same thing as if you're a person who prefers a more genuine communication style through a phone and I'm just trying to blow you up in text, you're going to get annoyed. You're going to be like, this dude keeps blowing me up, but I don't have time to respond to his text messages. Why doesn't he just call me? What's he afraid of? Why doesn't he want to talk to me? What's he trying to hide? Like there's all these weird little psychological things that our prospects are going through. They have their own lives. They have their own things going on. So to me, I just want to make this as genuine and comfortable for them as possible. And so if they don't want to answer the phone, I'll text them. And if they don't answer a text, I'll email them. And if they don't do that, I'll go to social media and I will find the channel through which they prefer to communicate and then just focus on that channel. So calling the damn leads could also mean texting the damn leads. Could also mean knocking the damn door. Could also mean sending the damn DM. It's just a mantra for doing the work. But that's the thing most people aren't doing, Flint, is the work.
And that's an incredibly good answer. And thank you for being that candid. Because it goes back to it. It's those piles of contacts that we make all the time. And do you follow up with them or not? And some people can look at, and then this dawned on me a couple of days ago. Some people can look at a social media feed and see nothing but entertainment. And some people can look at that and see nothing but work. And this is true even back in old school sales days when we had to go knock doors and cold calling, whether you're business to business or not. You have the two sales reps in the exact same neighborhood. One of them looks at that and goes, there's 300 houses in here. I'm never going to get through this in a day. The other one's like, holy shit, there's 300 houses in here. There's a few guys in here going to buy from me.
That attitude, buying something today.
Someone's buying something. Law of averages says even if I suck at my job, I'm going to accidentally do something right. Yep. So, and we can do that. And internally, and this is leading to my next question for you. Internally, those of us that perform in this arena, we have those opinions on different days. I know there's some days I look at my social media feed and I'm just like, there's nothing here. And the next morning I wake up and look at it and I go look at the exact same post. Oh, well, I got people I can contact here. I got people I can contact here. How do you handle that, the ups and downs? Because, I mean, that is your business, is teaching people how to be powerful sales reps. So how do you handle that personally when you get there?
For me, it's consistency in the routine. At one point in my life, I weighed 315 pounds. I've lost 100 pounds. I put 80 of it back on, lost 100, got to the smallest that I've ever been, wasn't happy. So I got, for me, I relate it to the gym in the sense of it's a math problem, man. If you do the work and you trust the process, it will work. The results might vary depending upon your efforts, but at the end of the day, man, if you make 100 calls, you probably got a good chance of talking to 10 people. And if you're talking to 10 people, out of those 10, in the next 30 days, if you're not a complete idiot, you might have a chance to close 2 of them. And if you do that every day, 22 days a month, well, guess what? Math says that you probably might close 30 deals. And if you close 30 deals this month, how much money would you make? Because all that matters is you show up and you trust the process. And so good day, bad day, yeah, I have them. A lot of ups, downs. I mean, I'm a small business owner that walked away from a multi-6-figure salary to start my own thing because I knew that Call the Damn Leads was bigger than just a back burner project. And also I walked away from a multi-6-figure paycheck where I had to now be responsible for everything. And what most people aren't willing to do is just show up and do the work. That's why I call the damn leads exist. And the way to get through the good, the bad, and the ugly is to just do the work. And when you focus on that, it's odd that over time, you tend to get better results and better results and better results. And it gets to a point where you start to go, all right, well, this is the new baseline. And so if I want different results than the baseline, I have to adjust the work that I'm doing. Maybe it's working on a different project. Maybe it's selling a different product. Maybe it's creating efficiencies. Maybe it's creating a podcast so that I can take my message instead of just one-to-one, it's one-to-many. There's all these different strategies to get out there, but to overcome that mindset of good days, bad days, do the work. That's all that matters.
I've never regretted going to the gym after I was done working out. But there's been times
I can't say that because I've definitely hurt myself. Not to interrupt you, but like I've definitely hurt myself in the gym. But it was the regret of trying too hard and not having a good process. And that's where I got hurt. But from showing up, you never regret showing up.
No. Which is, and I use that as an example because it's more visceral, it's more emotional for people because they I want to get in shape. God, I don't want to go walk today. Or you sit outside the gym. I could just go home and nobody would know the difference. Maybe I just sit here and take a nap. People do that, and they don't realize they do it with work too by putting things off, or I don't need to do this, or I'll make all those calls. But then you look at those reps that are making the calls, that are putting in the work, and they call them lucky because you can't see what's not important to you. So I appreciate you answering that question the way, because it really is. It doesn't even make me irritated anymore. People are like, oh, well, I'm not like you. You're just lucky. It's like, you don't know what it's like to be an entrepreneur. Oh, well, I want to do what you do. So I used to not tell people because it scared them. Now I tell them, okay, well, I worked 16, 18 hours a day, 6, 7 days a week for at least 18 months, closer to 24 before I could leave my corporate job. Well, I'm not going to do that. You asked. Maybe you could do it differently. You asked what I did.
My day starts at 3 a.m. every day, and it usually winds up around 9:30, 10 o'clock. I don't have any hobbies. I don't go out and party with friends. I barely have any time to do anything than work on me, my family, and my business. So, yeah, kudos to anyone that wants this life because it's not easy. It's not for the faint of heart. But we know that on the other side of the work comes a reward. And that reward will far exceed any amount of pain or any amount of effort that we put out today. And that's the difference. And that's why I like talking to guys like you, Flint, because you understand that and you know it wholeheartedly, and you will share that with others and be completely transparent and honest about it, because there are a lot of people who won't, that want to make it shiny and fun and sexy and get people to come in and buy into their thing and pay them for whatever. But the truth is, I'm the first one to tell you, yeah, you're going to pay me and I'm going to give you a lot more work to do. And if you do that work, here's what we can expect the results to look like based on the law of large numbers. What do you want to do?
Well, I want the results, but I don't want to do the work. I want the magic pill where I can be skinny or I can be jacked or whatever your goal happens to be. I want to be wealthy, but I don't want to put in the work. It's like, and we hear it all the time. And another thing that people don't think about, and I'm going to talk to everybody, my listeners, your listeners, whoever's out there, is you just gave that work schedule, and that's a pretty normal work schedule. We all start between 3 and 5 in the morning. My particular day starts about 3:45 and goes until the same rate, 10:30 at night, usually 11. It's the nature of the business. But as a result, I've ended up with old friends or people, old acquaintances, like, well, you never have time to spend time with us anymore. You don't do anything anymore. Or they think we're being rude. It's like, no, look, I have such a limited amount of time that if I'm not spending it with my family or I'm not resting, it better add some value and some interaction to the conversation, that person. So if you're going to be friends with somebody who is a high performing and is a high level entrepreneur, man, be prepared to talk about what your dreams are, what your goals are, what kind of deals you're putting together, because that's the people that we spend time with, because that's what feeds us. And if it doesn't bring something to the table, and it was hard for me to learn this for a long time, if that relationship doesn't bring something to the table, it's okay to let it go.
Amen, brother. And that was and is still a battle I face on a daily basis as an entrepreneur and small business owner. There's only 24 hours in a day. And I got a lot of priorities and responsibilities that take precedence over the things that are not a priority. And fun is a priority in the extent that it starts with my family first. And if I don't have any extra time after that, well, sorry, y'all. I don't mean to be rude, but I'm literally doing the thing that I was put on this earth to do, which is be an example and be a provider. And I can only do that to the level and a capacity at which I have trained and prepared my body and mind to do so. And what I know is that anyone who is going on that path, they're excited to stretch themselves to be a part of what others like that have going on, because they know that getting off the porch and trying to run with that pack is going to make them better. And at some point, you may realize the pack you're running with isn't making you better anymore, and you need to get out of that pack and go to other places or get out of certain relationships that are not serving you. And it's just like as a business owner, you want it to work. Well, they're good people, and I don't want to, whatever. But at the end of the day, are you together moving closer to your goals? Are you each bringing an amount of energy to the relationship that it has value? And it doesn't always have to be monetary. It doesn't always have to be, a physical thing. It has to be, am I getting out of this relationship enough value that it's worth my time, which is the most important asset that I have? Because I can make more money, but I can't get any more time.
And that's a true statement I wish everybody would embrace. It's like if I'm choosing to give you some of my time, then I'm taking it from somewhere else.
Amen.
It's not, it's when I'll make time for that. We don't make time. We take it. And we have to be very particular with where we spend it. The other corollary to that too, folks, is and I'm curious if you'll agree with me. I'm sure you will, but just because I have some free time on my calendar does not mean you're entitled to it.
You have free time on your calendar, Flint? That must be nice.
Not much, but every once in a while it pops up.
Yeah.
So I know Des makes me take a weekend off here and there. She goes, okay, you're turning into an animal. You're getting grouchy and you're getting mean. You need a day off.
I think and that's one of the nice things when you have a spouse who can call you on those things and who can see when you're not at your best. And that's, why we surround ourselves with great people. That's why we seek out tribes and communities where we can have these kinds of vulnerable conversations, because at the end of the day, it's hard to have hard conversations, but it's a lot nicer to know that people are willing to have those kinds of conversations with you and help you stay in line with the goals that you've set for yourself.
I love that. I don't have time for people around me that are going to be yes men and going to kiss my ass all the time. I don't have time for the bullshit. I need people that are going to be straightforward and direct. And you know what? Sometimes those conversations are easy and sometimes they're hard, but they're always appreciated if they come from the heart.
Yep.
So, and this hour has gone by so fast. We are out of time again. I am grateful that you gave us your time, and I'm going to ask you to close out with something, but we had to record this twice, folks, because the first time the audio was messed up. This last 45 minutes has been pure gold. This is so much better than the first episode that we did. Drewbie, I can't thank you enough. We have all of your socials. We're going to put them in the description of this. But to leave everybody with one thing, if you could take it away, what would you tell them?
I mean, biggest thing is trust the process. At the end of the day, you can have all the blueprints, you can have all the directions, you can have everything you need to make an amazing meal, but you have to trust the process. You have to do the work. And no matter where you end up at the end, you're going to get a result. And that result is going to be dependent upon the amount of intentionality and the effort that you put into the work that you're doing. And I'm just grateful that anyone who's still here an hour into this conversation, I know you've gotten something of value from it. So the one ask that I would have is, would you share this episode, put it on social media, send it to a friend, family member, coworker, someone that you think will get some value out of it, because you've invested your time, your most valuable asset, to listen to me and Flint ramble for the last hour. And that means a lot. And if you would send it to someone that you know who could also maybe appreciate it, that would be an exponential growth on our effort and investment into recording this. So that would be my biggest ask. And again, just trust the process. It's not always easy, but you get out there and you do the work, and man, life is pretty good.
Hey, absolutely. Thanks, Drewbie. I appreciate you. Guys out there, do definitely share this. Attention is what drives this train. That's the fuel that we have to put in it. So make sure that you are liked and subscribed and following me and Drewbie Meme Lord Wilson on all social media platforms. We both post frequently, if not daily, and you will always take away some value. Thanks for spending this last hour with us, and see you on the next episode. Love y'all. Peace.